Okay, so a couple of you fuckers have been asking, how do I texture and how can I help you out? You look like you got a huge workload. So I've put together this video to sort of tell you how to texture like Clo does. It's a difficult thing to get used to, and it's definitely one of those things that it's not it's one of those things that's hard to get into, but once you get started, it's easy. So the first thing that you are going to do is you're going to get your hands on Blender. You're going to get your hands on Blender. Blender is the program by which you can, oopsie, you can see models. Now, you might be wondering, okay, well, is that all I'm going to need? No, you are also going to need the Blender source tools. And the link for this will be in the description. So what you need to do when you have Blender installed is you're going to go to your file. And then you're going to go on down to your user preferences. This won't work on mine because I've already got it, ready to go. But what you're going to do is you're going to go on over to add-ons, which thankfully I'm already on, and you're going to install, I think? Yeah, install add-on from file. And you're going to take that and, just stick wherever you downloaded your Source Blender tools, you're going to put that here. Now, once it's in here, it'll show up with a little check mark, like all of these are. All of these are just check marked to let you know that, oh, there it is, Blender Source Tools, check marked. It means that it's working, it's active. So once you do that, you're good and gold. So your next step is, of course, well, what am I going to texture today? Now, for me, I've got a huge workload. I've got huge amount of skins and textures that I need to do, so I'm going to walk you through step by step by how I do things by doing the next thing on my list, which is King DDD Wigglytuff. So I'm going to go on down here to import, down all the way to Source Engine, going to go over here. Now this is my recent. These are the things I've looked at recently, but if I want to find them, I go to my desktop, my assets for editing, generations assets, Pixelmon, models. Now that one's important. You want the model file, not like a texture file. If you go to a texture file, the program's not going to know what to do. So I'm going to go from models to Pokemon, and these are this is every last Pokemon model in Pixelmon Generations, which is great. Thankfully, you don't have to go through them one by a time. You can just type up here the thing you're looking for, which for me right now is Wigglytuff. Now these are all of the SMD files. This is basically what tells the game, hey, this is this animation, this is that animation, but this is the model it is applied to. That was my phone going off. I should have muted that before I started recording. Whoopsie. So what I like to do is I like to move this down, and that's easy enough to do with this little blue arrow right here. So you might have noticed it's got some weird hanky-janky balls and dotted lines, and the whole thing is outlined in yellow. That's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to this tab called World. We're going to go on down here to Environmental Lighting and click it, and this drop-down menu to go on down to the UV/image editor. Now nothing shows up, and that's because I have to left click left click the model itself, not on any of the dotted lines or circles. Those, by the way, are the skeleton. That's basically points for the animation to reference so that things don't go wonky. Once you have the model itself selected, press tab, and all of the faces and vertices of the model will show up over here in the side that I have now set up for seeing this. This is the UV visualizer. So now that we have the UV set up, how am I going to reference them with the image? Which I can actually pull up as soon as I want to. But for the sake of this, I'm going to go over here to export UV layout. I'm going to go over to my desktop, assets for editing, and I have already here a folder set up just for UV maps. I'm going to name it wigglytuff.png because it is a .png file. And I'm going to export UV layout. I use a lot of keyboard shortcuts, so if you... oh, there it goes. There you go. Okay, so now we're going to go on over to our art program of choice. I've already got it set up so that this is my reference photo. I'm going to be using this to look at the generalized design of King Dedede, his colors, and, you know, his what he looks like. Over here, we have Wigglytuff's texture file. You might be going, well, that looks like a load of nonsense. And it is. So we're going to save this, not as it is. This is just where I keep my textures for my own sense of organization. We're going to name it Wigglytuff-King Dedede because that's how I organize. You can name it whatever you want so long as you don't mix it up with just wigglytuff.png. Once you've done that, now you don't have to like just immediately go from here to here. You can edit it, but I like to do that first so that I have something on the model to reference. Now I'm going to open image by going down here to image, open image. Because I've been on it recently, I can just go right to my texture folder and look for the right one. That's Wigglytuff-King Dedede. And you notice that now the UV area over here has its image in place, and that's kind of cool. But here's something even cooler. You might be wondering to yourself, ah, damn, I can't see anything on the model itself. Boom! That is the rendered setting. Rendered will take your UV map over here and apply it as you would see it in game. You can move the camera all around. Because I'm recording, it doesn't want to work with me, and that's okay. This way that it works, it is a little bit janky, so we're not going to be referencing this area too much. Now you might be going, oh, well, do I have to do that every time every time I make a change? Do I have to open up the file again every single time? No, you do not. You can just do that. I'm just making that line. I don't even know where that is. Probably could have done it somewhere closer. Going back over to Blender, image, reload. See, now it's over here. You can see that little streak I made. And because it's probably on its backside, yep, as suspected, it's on the backside. So that's a fun way of figuring out, okay, well, that's where that is on the model. You don't have to do that every time because of that handy-dandy UV thing. Oh, whoopsie. Because of the handy-dandy UV map that I saved, you can go on over, pull that out to assets for editing, UV maps, Wigglytuff. So this is the UV map for Wigglytuff. Cool, huh? I'm going to copy it and slap it on top of that. Oopsie, it's not quite aligned correctly. I don't know why it does this, to be honest. I think it's because the textures themselves are a little super compressed, but it is not hard to realign it to where it's supposed to be. So now that that's in place, I can reference it at any point that I want. And for us on the Generations crew, we also like to do the sprite once we're finished with the texture itself so that we don't have to, so that the sprite, you can tell the difference between a special sprite and a normal one just at a glance. So now that I know that this is in place, I'm going to skip that song because there are vocals and I can't concentrate. So basically from here, it's edit, 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 edit. And once everything is done, you can, go over here, refresh, blah, blah, blah. But for right now, what I'm doing is I'm going to mask this layer. So basically, here's a fun thing that I do. I start over here. Whoops, there's nothing there until I might make a mark. Now, I can fill it all with one color like that. I like to use hard light so you can see what's going on underneath, or multiply. Anything that basically takes the colors underneath so you can still see the shading. This is just for my... This is basically just how I do basic color changes. It's simple, it's fast, it doesn't look bad because you're covering the entirety of the texture. The problem with that is you're covering the entirety of the texture, including things like eyes, faces, stuff like that. So basically what I do is I go in and man, that music is really loud and obnoxious. Let's just go on back up to this one. I don't care. Spotify's not liking this because I'm recording, doing Blender. I have Chrome open. My computer is a potato, so normally what I do is I just have the music, Blender, and the Clip Studio going. What the hell is this music? It's not bad. I must have liked this a long ass time ago and just forgotten about it. Okay, this one also has vocals. I can't talk it with vocals going on at the same time. Thank you. That's how that's the... I might just remove that music track. So, you might have seen that there are multiple eyes on this texture. Now, I don't know why this happens. Occasionally, not very often, but occasionally, there will be two sets of eyes. It's very hard to see on Wigglytuff, but it's easier to see on things like Esper and such as that. I also have noticed that this texture has what I like to call a compromise zone on the ears. Compromise zones are your bane. It is where two parts of the UV map are overlapping in such a way that it's taking color information from two parts of the texture file itself. There is no way for you to fix that. Not unless you mess with the UVs itself, and I personally don't know how to do that. But now that we've, basically, this is the part where things get a little bit janky, because you don't know what's referenced, what's not. As you can see, the UV map says it references both sets of eyes, but when it's in-game, it'll only reference one of them. So that's why I've only uncovered one eye right now. I'm going to turn the UV map off, I'm going to save that. I also didn't know this about Wigglytuff, so it was just the next one on my list. But hey, it gives me an opportunity to show you guys what happens in this case. We're going to reload that. It seems that the eye I uncovered is not the one that is expressed. If I had to give my hunches, it would be one of these two over here that is. So let's just quickly uncover one. It doesn't have to be perfect for the purposes of identification. When you're in your touch-up phase, when you've got everything you want in place and things are looking good, that's when you want to start being perfectionist. And when you're doing the identification phase, which is what I'm doing right now, you don't want to be perfect, you just want to have something to reference. I'm gonna save that. Also, if you think that my menus are going fast, it's because I'm also referencing using, It's because I'm using keyboard shortcuts to make things go faster. I don't think it's actually... Oh my god. And sometimes it goes too fast and Blender doesn't know what the hell happened. So usually when that happens... There we go. Okay, so those eyes over here are the ones that are expressed. So here's something funny. The middle mouse wheel is what you use to turn your model around and around and around. That's something that took me a little bit to sort of puzzle out. If you go on over here to, is it material or texture? Yeah, this is a material texture. It'll do the same thing as the rendered, but it won't show it as well because the light source is who knows where. I actually don't know. I don't usually use this one, but it's easier on your CPU because when you use render, it's pulling from your graphics card, so it makes that part work harder. Whereas this is just Blender going, okay, so this is what it looks like. There's some kind of way to make a lamp or a light source. I haven't figured it out. Solid, we'll turn it back to the model with, the wireframe over it. Wireframe is literally the wireframe. Material, I have yet to figure out what that does, to be honest. But hey, it does something. So, I So I do hope that this sort of has helped you guys sort of figure out how this whole process works. When everything is said and done, you end up with beautiful textures, um, and it's, again, something that's hard to get into and very difficult at the start, but when you get really right into it and when you start hitting your stride, things make sense, it comes faster. Just like any skill, it takes practice, and it's definitely one of those things that's incredibly rewarding, in my opinion. Good luck to you guys in the future, and yeah, just have a good old day. See ya.